Take yourself on a cruise down Lombard Street, and on this St. Patrick's Day, make sure you visit the originator of the Irish coffee at the Buena Vista. You're going to cross over the Lefty O'Doul's Bridge, say hi to a seagull, and make sure they don't swipe your garlic fries. That's right. It is the San Francisco Giants on the Moss Spring Training Tours. Mac, we're coming down the home stretch of these here. Very interesting season will unfold in San Francisco. How the hell are you, buddy?
Doing well, a lot of madness going on, and I know you don't consider it the eve of opening day, but we're right there, aren't we?
Yeah, you're starting to trigger me again. I'm not going to talk about Manfred until we do our season preview show here, but a lot of changes in San Francisco and a lot of overdue changes in San Francisco. Yes. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring the leadoff hitter of all leadoff hitters to the plate. Opening thoughts, Vegas Mac, on the San Francisco Giants.
The San Francisco Giants need to escape from Alcatraz. They got to get out. They've just been kind of here. They need to get out. They got something different. And I think we got it. I think we got the escape. I think we got the key.
We might have the key, and it's one Gerald Dempsey Buster Posey III. Now the president of baseball operations, in an organizational shift that was massively overdue for this San Francisco Giants team. The last 8 years in San Francisco, under 500, under 500, under 500. The 14th most wins in Major League Baseball history, 500, under 500, under 500. A model of mediocre consistency, and that's not something that Giants fans take too very lightly. It's been a long time since this team was relevant again, and a gigantic organizational shift here with Posey coming into the fold and back to a grassroots kind of approach for the Giants this year. The first thing that Posey said in one of his first media availabilities, and this is Buster Posey, and those that weren't fortunate enough to pay attention to a lot of his career, this doesn't shock anybody. Moving the analytics offices out of a very prominent position in the clubhouse was the first step to hopefully rebuilding what is a proud franchise that's fallen on crap baseball over basically the last decade.
Yeah, one of the things that you talked about, it's just the change of the atmosphere. And I heard a great story. He's bringing a lot of the guys that he played with back to spring training, the Marco Scuderos and Panic and those kind of guys, just to kind of bring that whole Giants vibe that they haven't had. And it was, kind of a playoff with Remember the Titans. But he says, I heard one of the people say that he wants people to remember that they played the Giants, and that hasn't been the case over the last couple of years. It's got to be from the ground floor up, and he's doing a great job. I mean, if I was a Giants fan, I'd be excited.
Yeah, I think as a Giants fan, just in general, you're excited to see Farhan Zaidi the hell out of town. I mean, this is a guy, and I said this when they brought him in, and it's 1,000% the truth. This is a guy that was given a lot of credit because, he's a super smart guy, very analytical, brought in all his people, laptop this, laptop that. He was given so much credit for being the assistant GM to Billy Beane, being the assistant GM to Andrew Friedman, credit that he didn't deserve. And when he got a chance to run his own organization, he ran this one into the freaking ground. I mean, the Giants on the MLB pipeline rankings, and I know some people don't pay any attention to that, they're 28th out of 30 teams. There's a long, long rebuild here, and we'll get into some of the semantics and some of the particulars about it. And I think the one thing that I think you're going to see from the Giants as a whole, that really is how Buster Posey played. But as always, Mac, we go right to the pitching staff, and this is an intriguing one for the Giants. Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander, Jordan Hicks, and Landon Roop looks like he's going to get a chance to get that fifth spot. Kind of a bright spot for him last season. He's looked good at times in the spring. He's looked really good at times in the spring, and then he's been touched up a little bit. What do you make of the Giants' starting pitching rotation, at least going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you start with Logan Webb, that's going to put you in that upper echelon of pitching rotations anyway. And Justin Verlander's Justin Verlander. Listen, he's not what he was 3, 4, 5 years ago. But again, we talked about this. What he can give you, he's going to give you. He threw the ball pretty well last year. He's going to give you good starts, but he's going to give you a whole lot of other stuff outside of what he does when he's actually pitching. That's going to help your staff and develop your staff, which is, you can't put a dollar sign on that. And then, Robbie Ray, I mean, he's a Cy Young type pitcher. It is when he's healthy. That's the thing. And again, that's a big thing. He's got really, really good stuff. And then you get a good mix of some young pitchers in there. So again, maybe not the best staff in the National League, but it's not bad. It's got some really good potential, especially if everybody stays healthy. This is a pretty it's a hard throwing staff is what it is. You look at the top 3 guys; these guys really throw hard.
Yeah, and Logan Webb, be out in Arizona long enough, you call him Brandon Webb by accident sometimes, but he led the National League in innings pitched in 2023 and again in 2024. So he's logged a lot of innings over the last couple of years. Waiting in the wings, Kyle Harrison, Hayden Birdsong, who Giants fans saw a little bit last year. And I think Harrison is definitely going to start down in AAA. I mean, right now he's got some velocity questions and issues that are kind of having some people within the Giants organization scratch their head why this kid all of a sudden can't throw, over 87, 88 miles an hour. So they have some talent there, but I'm always bullish when it comes to Giants prospects, because for so many years we've heard about all these guys and Tyler Beebe is the one that always jumps out off the top of my head here. All these future superstar Giants pitchers that get there and nothing really happens. And, feel free to comment. Again, follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. That one from You Got Roz here. And this is an excellent question. We kind of talked about this last week. Does Verlander make it through the full year? Does he get traded? Does he make it through the full year healthy, or does he get traded? And we talked about this with the Astros and how big of a loss it was going to be for the Astros in just not having Verlander's presence there and what he can teach a pitching staff, and how much better can Logan Webb be just hanging around Justin Verlander every day. I'm interested to see Robbie Ray, another guy you brought up, a guy I have absolutely loved his entire career. Did have the Cy Young a few years back, only 7 starts last year for the Giants coming off of the Tommy John surgery. So I think if you get a healthy Verlander, you get a healthy Robbie Ray, and Logan Webb is still Logan Webb. I mean, that's a top 3 right there that's going to win you some ball games. We'll get into the offensive side of things later. The bullpen is the interesting thing here. Ryan Walker is going to enter the year as a closer. Camilo Doval was the closer last year, had some control issues. What do you make of the Giants bullpen before we get into the nuts and bolts of who's there?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of question marks for me with their bullpen. Doval was just had a horrible year. That's a spot I think that the Giants are going to need to kind of see what's going to happen. I really don't know. That it's a big question mark. I just put a big question mark by the bullpen because I really don't know kind of where they're going with that right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how these last couple of days of spring training work, because right now they only have one lefty that kind of is a shoo-in to make the opening day roster, and that's Eric Miller. They have Joey Lucchesi there and Enny Romero, who are also lefties. I got a hard time believing Bob Melvin, who is in his 22nd year as a manager now, is going to go into the year with one left-hander in the bullpen. So that's kind of interesting there. They have guys that are not huge names. Like Sean Jelly has been really, really good for the Giants. But, there are question marks there. And I think that's one place that the Giants fans would have liked to have seen addressed here more quickly by Buster Posey. And I'll get to Giants fans and Buster Posey in a second here. But, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think there are question marks here. And we know, Mac, as we, quote, pan the camera out, again, sponsorship opportunities are available. MikeAranaShow@gmail.com. But as we pan the camera out to the National League West, we've already talked about the Diamondbacks. We're going to talk about the Dodgers next week. We've already talked about the Padres. Like, your bullpen's going to have to do some work in this division, and it is a giant it is a giant question mark in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, and especially in that ballpark, it's they don't get a lot of runs scored in that ballpark. It's a great ballpark. Don't get me wrong, but that bullpen does get used quite a bit because they're in a lot of close games, and that's why they use that bullpen so much. But you've got, we talked about the Diamondback staff, like you said, and we're going to talk about the Dodger staff. I mean, there's a lot there that they have to compete against. They're going to have to be on their game right from the start. So they've got to get that bullpen figured out. We talked about this with a couple other teams, because the difference between in this division making the playoffs and not making the playoffs is going to be those couple of games. And you bullpens are an important part. I mean, let's just be honest, it's an important part of the game right now.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that does bode well for the Giants, and obviously the big splash they made in the offseason, was the signing of Willy Adames to shore up a position that's been a question mark since franchise icon and big-time Mike's man crush guy Brandon Crawford moved on. The defensive middle of this team is incredibly good. They're going to move Tyler Fitzgerald to second base because of Adames. You've got Jung Ho Lee, who's dealing with a classic, what we call a Mike Arana ailment right now. He slept wrong and he's got some back issues. But in the brief time that we saw Lee last year, really good in center field, covers a lot of ground. As you know, in center field last year, or in center field at Oracle Park, is tough because you got the goofy right field, the deep corner in triples alley. Last year it was Helio Ramos there and minus 17 defensive run saves. It was just not a good position for him. And then Matt Chapman on the left side. So when you go up the middle on this Giants defense and you go to the left side of this Giants defense, very, very good. And that's going to help any pitching staff out, as you well know as a former catcher yourself.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, and especially there. If it's kind of, in a lot of ways, that stadium reminds me of Fenway Park, just all those little nooks and crannies. And like you said, if you don't have good outfielders who know how to play and know where they are, it'll cost you a couple of runs in the course of a season. And like you said, defensively, of course, Matt Chapman, I mean, exceptionally good at third base. I mean, he's one that you just love to watch play. Again, not the best for the Giants. I say this a lot. It's not the best, but they're not the worst either. They're above average defensive team.
Yeah, and another position as we switch into the position players and just the offensive philosophy for the Giants. Easy for you to say. Another position that's kind of been a pain in the ass for the Giants for quite some time now is first base. Lamont Wade, my guy, who I love. You've heard me say this before. Concrete feet, Wilmer Flores, who I'm pretty sure I could beat in a race. They're both back this year, and they're going to share time at first base. The exciting part about the future for Giants fans, the future at first base, is not that far down the road in Bryce Eldridge. Power hitter, can play. He's got a decent, I would say above decent glove, but Bryce Eldridge is going to shore up that side. So shortstop and first base have been kind of a pain in the ass for the Giants. First base on its way, and I think that's why they brought back Wade and they brought back Concrete Feet Wilmer Flores. But they don't want to rush Eldridge, but I don't know how long with all the Giants fans that are excited to see him get up there. I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep him down. And we've seen this a couple times. You don't really see this a ton in spring, but when we've talked about spring and what do you really get out of spring training? Melvin has rolled his lineup out in his potential lineup, and I have some serious questions. Lamont Wade, Willy Adames, Jung Ho Lee, Matt Chapman, Elio Ramos, Elliot Ramos. I always call him Elio for some stupid reason. Patrick Bailey, Wilmer Flores, Mike Yastrzemski, and Tyler Fitzgerald. I don't know how long Jung Ho Lee is going to be in the third hole, and I don't like him in the third hole, but what do I know? Because Bob Melvin's been doing this a real long time.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a spot where we don't really know what he's going to do there. I wanted to talk about Eldridge for a second. I bet you don't see him until maybe the second half. I think they'll send him down for a good first half. I think he still got some work to do defensively. You have to understand that the Giants have to play things different. The Giants aren't going to win games by hitting home runs. That park is not made for that. You look at the Giants teams that have won the World Series, they weren't. Yeah, you had Bonds. We know that. But other than that,
yeah, but he never won one.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying, that type of thing. They have to play hitting the ball into the gap. That's the type of baseball they have to play because of the stadium that they're in. And so, that's the one thing I worry about Adames. His numbers are going to his power numbers may go down a little bit because, that's a park that just kills the power there. We know that. But, his doubles may go up. Those extra bases may go up. And so, yeah, if they're looking for something, I think that would be another good outfielder. Probably something they want to look for because a little weakish in the outfield.
Yeah, especially, when it comes to what Ramos can do. And Ramos provides some pop with the bat, but, again, he was forced to play out of position last year. And I mentioned the runs that they lost with him in center field last year. So seeing him in left, hopefully that's better this year. Mike Yastrzemski, I mean, he's learned how to play right field in that ballpark as well as probably anybody does. So that gives him a massive advantage there. And I'm glad you brought up the park. And this was the thing, and this because, we talk, you, myself, TJ, we talk fairly frequently. And you've heard my frustrations with the Giants. All these metrics, dorks and nerds and launch angle and this and that. Before Farhan Zaidi took over the Giants and brought his whatever the hell he was doing there to tank this franchise, the Giants were not a team that would hit a ton of fly balls. And because the new wave and craze is launch angle, the Giants went up over 40% in their fly balls. Well, who's running the Giants now? And you brought up the years that the Giants went on their World Series run. Buster Posey never hit more than 24 home runs in his career. He never had a fly ball rate over 40%. He was closer to the 30% there. And I think that's going to be the biggest philosophy shift for the Giants. And you mentioned bringing back old Giants into the clubhouse. Well, Pat Burrell was retained as the hitting coach. And a lot of people were like, well, why? Well, you got to remember, Pat Burrell won a World Series in 2010 with Buster Posey and the Giants. And what did the Giants do? Exactly what you just said. Contact, make contact, yep. Make contact, make contact. And that, for me, is the thing that I'm looking forward to and seeing. And you've seen it a little bit in spring from the Giants already. Matt Chapman, my God, just put him in bubble wrap, send him back to San Francisco and send him to Cincinnati because that's where they open. But the dude's tearing the cover off the ball. The Giants have to go back to being contact hitters because that's what the ballpark dictates.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to get some home runs here and there. Like you said, half your games are on the road, so you don't have to worry about it through half your games. But again, in the West, those are not, the bob a little bit, but other than that, there's not a lot of the other ones. Dodger Stadium, not good for hitting home runs. San Diego, still, you've got that layer that's there, the ocean layer that comes in, marine layer. That's the word I was looking for. The marine layer, and it's tough to hit home runs there. So they're playing a good portion of their games in stadiums that aren't conducive. They're not in the NL Central where it's bandbox after bandbox after bandbox, and so that's the formula for the Giants. Good start, and it's an old thing. It's good starting pitching, good defense, and timely hitting. That's how the Giants won with the teams that they had. Think about the guys that they had, like you said. You talk about Crawford and whatnot. Those are the types of players that they had. Not home run hitters, baseball players. Guys hit the ball in the gap, catch everything that's hit to you, make the plays. That's how the Giants won World Series. That's how the Giants are going to get back to being the Giants.
Yeah, and that's the most exciting thing. You've got a good defensive team, at least up the middle and the left side of the infield. You're gonna, I mean, if you're a fan of defensive baseball, you're gonna want to watch this Giants left side of the infield between Adames and Chapman. I mean, that's about as good as it gets from a defensive standpoint. The other thing I like too, and a lot of people questioned this signing in the offseason to go back to the pitching, Justin Verlander. It's a guy who's had some home run issues in the past, as has Robbie Ray. They're guys that pitch to a lot of fly balls. And I know just from friends and family back home, like, why the hell did we sign Verlander? Why did we give him $15 million? Well, there really wasn't anybody else there. And Justin Verlander is a perfect pitcher, as is Robbie Ray, for Oracle Park, because they pitch to a lot of fly balls. And I think you have to go back. Yeah, Justin Verlander, he's, definitely on the backside of his career, but the mentorship, and he's a perfect pitcher for that ballpark. And obviously we know, as you mentioned, the NL West, I mean, Coors Canaveral's the anomaly in the list, but you only play there 9-10 times a year. So you've got to be built to win your games at home. And they're gonna be in some battles early on. They open at home against the Mariners. We are talking about the Mariners actually this Thursday. I believe it's Thursday. I have no idea. Yeah, it's Thursday. And they're going to get the Mariners right away. We know about the Mariners pitching staff. They've got a tough road that bullpen and their pitching staff is going to be kind of tested at the beginning. They go out in the middle of April on a road trip to Yankee Stadium, and then they go play the Phillies. I mean, so they're going right up against it right away. And I'm interested to see how they come out with the new approach, the organizational shift. You look at their bench, there's some question marks there. It looks like Gerard Encarnacion is going to be given the opportunity to take a lot of the DH at bats, even though Wilmer Flores is going to probably get the nod on opening day there. But then when you look at the rest of their bench, man, and this is another thing where I'm just like, what are we doing here? Luis Matos, is he the backup in right field? There's so many questions on their bench to me. I have more questions about their bench than the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to remember, Buster Posey's just getting started. It's going to take him a while to get his fingerprints on everything, and so that's probably the last thing that he's kind of worried about at this point. I looked at their schedule, Mike. They have a brutal stretch in September. If you look from like the 8th to the 21st, they play Arizona 6 times and LA 7 times. It sounds silly, but that could be the season right there. I mean, if they stay close, that 2.5, 3 week stretch right there could really be the season. I mean, 13 games against 2 of the top teams in the division, that's going to make or break a lot of it.
What a genius concept, by the way, by Major League Baseball to make sure the Giants and Dodgers are actually playing each other in September, unlike a couple years ago. It's a trigger, man. I got to work on that.
Don't go there yet.
No, I can't go there. I can't go there yet. And here's the thing, and I'm glad you just brought this up before we get into a couple of our favorite things to do here on our spring training previews. Again, follow us at Mike Arana Show on all of our social channels, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. TJ, I'm going to start charging you every time I have to say that, but patience is not a virtue bestowed on Bay Area sports fans very well. A lot of people at the beginning of the year, you saw it with the Warriors. Now look at what the Warriors have done. Be patient. The 49ers situation is the microcosm of the mentality of most Bay Area sports fans. Well, what are we doing? Why do we even have a team? We might as well release Brock Purdy and all the other bullshit I've heard. Listen, the Niners released a bunch of players that weren't producing. The Warriors were going to do their thing. Shocking that the Bay Area sports fans are being patient with the Sharks. There's another thing to remember here. And this goes very, very well. And projections are projections. The Giants are the Bay Area's baseball team now. And from a financial standpoint, that is going to pay them tenfold over the next couple of years. That's why the move to Posey now was important, because they are the Bay Area's baseball team. And the amount of money that this franchise will be able to bring in over the next couple of years is going to put them in a position where they can spend with the Chicagos. They can spend with the New Yorks. They can spend with the Philadelphias. But you got to be patient. And in all reality here, Mac, the high ceiling, I think, for this Giants team is as it's currently constructed is maybe a run at the third wild card. That's going to be the interesting dynamic to me, is seeing how the Bay Area sports fans are patient or not patient with this, because Buster Posey's there. He can't fix everything in one shot.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it'll be very tough for them as they're constructed right now to win the West. And so, while excuse me, that other wild card spot, that last one, absolutely something that they can shoot for. I think more than anything, if I know I hate to say this because I know how much you like the Giants, but I think something over 500, a season well over 500, 5, 6, 8, 10 games over 500. I think you'd look at it and you go, all right, we're moving in the right direction. It wasn't a playoff team, but you know what? We made some strides. Now let Buster cook for the whole year in the offseason and see what we come up with.
Yeah, you've got to give him a chance to go into the offseason where the Giants are not the ugly friend of the bridesmaid. They're the actual bride. And we saw it with Soto. We saw it with Ohtani. A little bit on Roki Sasaki. Whether they were as close as they want us to believe on that, who knows? But that's been the biggest thing. And Matt Chapman, I think, is the perfect example of that. He wasn't really sure he wanted to re-sign in San Francisco until Buster Posey came in and had a conversation with him and closed the deal. And I think finally, and I'm not even going to get started on the ownership of the Giants right now, because you think I'm going to tangent on Rob Manfred, talk about an owner that doesn't really give a damn. But I think, and that was the thing, Buster Posey, ironically, was brought in to be the closer. He closed the Matt Chapman deal. He was the one. Farhan Zaidi would have had no prayer in hell to sign Willie Adames. No friggin' shot. But you got to be patient with what Gerald's doing in this position. They will be able to compete with the Dodgers. It's just going to take them a year or two. Let's play a game, shall we?
Let's do it. I love it.
All right. If you really want to get froggy with it, and Mac, for those of you that are just joining us for the first time in spring, thank you. Every one of these, we give Mac $100 of my money to make his best bet on some of the odds for the Giants in the upcoming season. So for the Giants to win the World Series, they're plus 8,000. For the Giants to win the National League pennant, they are plus 3,500. For the Giants to win the National League West, they are plus 1,800. Over-under on wins is 80.5. And because of these fringe teams, you know what I'm going to say, Mac, to make the playoffs, they are a plus 250. To miss the playoffs, they are minus 250. While you kick that around, let me set the schedule for the rest of the week here for us. We've got Kansas City and St. Louis tomorrow. We head on over to the Big Apple on Wednesday for the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. We've got the, off the top of my head, we have the Mariners and the Nats on Thursday, and the Twinkies and the Rays on Friday. Obviously a busy week in the sports world. All right, Mac, with that $100 of mine, what shall you do?
I shall think that the Giants win total will be above 80.5.
I like it. I mean, that's a smart bet based on what you just said. I mean, you, if you were a Giants fan, want to see them. Hey, let's try and get over 500 and stay there for a couple of years. Novel concept.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple, I mean, obviously World Series and the pennant, I think, are a little bit of a stretch for them. I just think, especially being in the West, I'm still throwing around how many teams from the West are going to get there versus how many in the East. I have the visions of Padres versus the Mets. I can't go, but I'm just trying to think, honestly, are the Giants better than the Mets? Are the Giants better than the Padres? I don't think so at this point.
No, and I'd agree with you. And again, it's to my Bay Area brethren out there, patience. Be patient. English is a funny language. Be patient with Gerald. He's going to build the Giants back to where they were, but it is going to take time when you have a guy who was there from 2019 to 20. Actually, we want to thank Farhan Zaidi for joining us, making an appearance on the show. Here he is right here. There's Farhan Zaidi. That was miserable. Farhan Zaidi made me hate baseball for a couple of years, and and some of my friends out there watching know I watch an unhealthy amount of baseball, and for me to hate watching baseball, that's how bad he ran this franchise into the ground. So I'm happy, I'm excited, but I also understand that it is going to take some time here. So again, Cardinals, Royals tomorrow. Yankees, Mets on Wednesday. We've got a couple pre-recorded for Thursday and Friday because of March Madness. If you hadn't seen our March Madness show from last night, go ahead and you can find that on our YouTube, Facebook, and on our X pages. So for everybody behind the scenes, and there's a lot of them, for Vegas Mac, for TJ, we will talk to you tomorrow. I'm Mike, and we're out.